Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. The question I want to keep before you tonight is, where is your primary source of love in your life? Because if you can't get love, you're not going to be able to give love. So just keep that in mind. Let's now listen to God's Word.
And this is the Gospel according to Luke. Great crowds were traveling with Jesus, and he turned and addressed them. If anyone comes to me without hating his father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. Which of you, wishing to construct a tower, does not first sit down and calculate the cost to see if there is enough for its completion? Otherwise, after laying the foundation and finding himself unable to finish the work, the onlookers should laugh at him and say, "This one began to build, but did not have the resources to finish." Or, what king marching into battle would not first sit down to decide whether with 10,000 troops he can successfully oppose another king advancing upon him with 20,000 troops? But if not, while he is still far away, he will send a delegation to ask for peace terms. In the same way, any of you who does not renounce all his possessions cannot be my disciple.
The question you and I always have to try to wrestle with, and at least maybe come to some kind of working answer, is where is my primary source of love? What Jesus does in this gospel is to say, these two pieces cannot be your primary source of love. Relationships. Don't make them your primary source of love. Because he's very clear on that. He uses that word in hyperbole, but he's really saying, where is your alliance? Are those the ones that you are relying on? Are those the ones that you're going to be committed to? Are those the ones that you pledged that you're going to give me what I need? So he said, relationships can never be your primary source of love. And that's sort of startling because he says, love others. But you forget to hear the front part. He said, as I have loved you, as I have loved you. And then the second piece where he says you cannot get love, or at least it gives you little droppings as the top part does, is the whole question of possessions. Possessions are a symbol of love. As you accumulate them, then you feel good about yourself, or you feel I'm important or I'm whatever, but I feel love in many ways. And so what happens oftentimes, they are never satisfying. They never satisfy you. So he's holding those two pieces and saying, those you can't. Relationships, persons, and things can no longer ever be if your primary source of love, if you're going to be my disciple. And then he brings that middle piece in. That middle piece, very simply, where he reminds us, where he says so simply and so sharply, is that you have to get in touch with your own sense of poverty, which means what? The carrying of the cross. That you have to get in touch that you can't fill yourself, no matter how hard you try. And you can't fill yourself with love no matter how hard you try. That you have to begin to recognize I have a poverty, and that inside of me, even though I have a wellspring of God's love within me, I also have a wellspring of love within me that I have accumulated over different times. But my dear brothers and sisters, that gets empty pretty quick as you deal with the everydayness of relationship and life. Because what you're doing is you're giving of yourself. If you want to have any kind of happiness, sort of the giving of yourself. And all of a sudden you find yourself being empty by that. And especially if you have to deal with a suffering or a life challenge that causes suffering in your life, you're also giving the energy away inside of you from your wellspring just to cope with the suffering. And so what happens oftentimes is we find ourselves becoming empty. And so we have to get in touch with that inner poverty that we have inside ourselves, that we can't love ourselves, we can't get love from other people, and we can't get love from things. We can't do that in order to begin to fill that hole inside of us. And so that's what the Lord is trying to say to us. And what he basically reminds each one of us, where he says, I am the vine, you are the branches. Without being connected to me, you can't do anything. Nothing, he said. And so you must keep that in mind. And so therefore, I want you to look at something in front of you of why you may need to access the wellspring of God's love in you, that pure, unconditional love. And that is where your alliance is. That's where your allegiance is, I mean. That's what you need to begin to spend time and energy on in your life in order to basically love in every situation. I want you to take the book After Diagnosis, chapter 19, and to look at the chapter called The Expansiveness of Love, to be able to see what the Lord is saying you need to do in order to be a disciple in the movement of love. And you can't do it on your own. You can't try to pull this off, because this will empty you unbelievably fast, and you'll begin to stand in a hole that doesn't make sense, or it becomes sort of like a waste of time. So just listen to the front pieces of The Expanses of Love. I will choose to love you generously and sacrificially with no expectations of return. In other words, it's not going to be transaction. It's not going to be transactional. In fact, what it will be basically saying is, I will love you generously and sacrificially. Not only once, but that'll be my posture and stance towards you. Moving up a little higher, I will choose to love you even if I don't like you or feel connected to you. I will choose to love you, a selfless love. I will give of myself to you, even if I don't like you or if I don't feel connected to you. And all of a sudden what happens is that begins to realize that I don't know if I have enough love in my own wellspring of love. Going up another level, I will choose to love you with the permission to reject or accept my love. In other words, I will choose to love you even if you choose to reject me or push me away. I will continue to give you of myself, a selfless movement of love to you, even if you reject me, or even if in many ways that you somehow just say, get away from me. So we're looking at this now. I will choose to love you even if I am experiencing physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual suffering. In other words, I will choose to love you in a selfless way when my suffering radically puts me in on myself, when my suffering radically empties me of myself. I will choose to love you. And that's amazing when that happens. And then the last is, I will choose to love you even if you are mistreating me, even if you hate me, and even if you are my enemy. I will choose to love you. I will choose to give of myself, a selfless love to you. My dear brothers and sisters, as you hear this movement, you need in a very concrete way to realize that I need to do the work internally to access the wellspring of God's love within inside of me, so that I can do this. Because he said, if you're looking for love all the time, or your love is transactional, and listen to what transactional love looks like. I will love you because I like you and I feel connected to you. I'm getting something out of that. I will love you out of obligation. I'm fulfilling something that I said I will do. I will love you minimally with expectations of return. I will love you generously with expectations of return. And I will love you sacrificially with expectations of return. That's all transactional. And even in your transactions, that becomes difficult, because every time you seek to love another, to give of yourself, you're being emptied by the love that's within inside of you. And so you're saying, I'll continue to do that, but I need you to return it back to me in a way so that I can continue to love. And if you don't do it, then I'm going to be in trouble in my relationship with you. And so in closing, I just want you to think about it. Jesus is saying, let me be your primary source of love. Tap into that often. Tap in it in the beginning of your day, so that what? In your emptiness and in your poverty, you can be filled with pure unconditional love, and that will continue to be poured forth into the lives of others who you touch, with no expectations that they're going to return it or not, because what you're going to do, you're going to love as God loves. And he has no expectations. He just wants to love you for you. Pure, unconditional love for you, and you'll be able to do the same, because you will be a disciple then of the Lord. Thank you so much.